Hello, and welcome to this week's live stream. We will continue our run through of all the modules. We are now up to Q. As always, if you have any questions about Beebo, Hector, or Flat 5, or anything else we've done, feel free to ask them. Also, we'll give you a quick update on the progress of the next firmware update. We're writing this nice little website that will help automate the process of capturing amps. That's pretty much finished now, so I'm just putting the last kind of little polishes on that. And yeah, that basically will let you, will help you through the capturing process. So when you're capturing an amp, it's gonna guide you through the process of writing the information about the amp, the year, make, photo of it, things like that. And then you describe the controls of the amp, and it lets you capture each of those different controls. Because it's a bit of a fiddly process normally, so it's kind of a way to make that nice and easy, and then it sends it off to get trained, because that's the kind of process with these amps. You capture the audio, and then you train it with this artificial intelligence neural network. You train the amp, so that needs quite a computer with plenty of oomph and a big graphics card. Obviously, not everybody's got one of them, and the easiest option is to do some kind of online training. So we've set it up so it'll go off to a server of ours that has a graphics card in it. It'll train the model, and then it'll come back. So we're trying to make all of that training stuff really easy, and that should be ready for people to test and try out this week. So we're pretty excited about getting all of that and making it really easy for you to load your own models of amps into the NAMM amp capture stuff that's was in the recent update of Beebo. So yeah, that will be hopefully all out this week. So yeah, if anybody's got questions about that or anything else, feel to ask. Otherwise, we are on to Q. So the first two in Q are the Quad IR cab and the Quad IR Reverb. So these have stereo inputs and stereo outputs, and they require a 4-channel quad IR. So you almost never want this, would be my summary, unless you've got some reason that your left and right channels of your cab influence each other. Usually it's a much better choice to have 2 mono cabs, because you aren't really going to have, unless you want the left input to spill into the right output and vice versa. That's the case where you might want a quad IR cab, but you'll need special 4-channel IRs to do this, and then you get stereo in and stereo out. Otherwise, dual mono is the way to do. And if you've got a stereo file, then you get mono in, stereo out. So yeah, you don't want this for stereo, mono to stereo. The reverb is exactly the same, and as it says, you'll need quad channel files for this reverb. Otherwise, they work the same as the normal cabs and reverbs. They just need quad channel files, so stereo in, stereo out. So even though these say quad IR reverbs, they're not quadraphonic. They are stereo in, stereo out, but that, because you have interactions between, you'll have an IR of how the left is influencing the right, how the right is influencing the left. You end up with needing more channels of IR in that. So yes, that's how, these are the quad channel ones. So normally, unless you're doing something pretty exotic, you're not going to need these ones. And if you do, you need special files. But we get up to the star of Q, which is the Quantizer. So it looks like this pretty keyboard that you see here. And you can turn on and off notes that you want to be active. So if we want the major scale, we just turn off all our sharps. And, you know, if we dislike seconds, we'll get rid of them. And, you know, maybe you just want third or fourth, or, you know, pentatonics. Now, when you run a volt per octave CV signal into this, it will snap it to those notes. If you're using an older version of the firmware, there was a bug in some of the earlier versions of this Quantizer. So definitely upgrade to the latest if you want a working Quantizer. So yeah, this will snap your notes. This is very useful if you want to use something that's harmonizing from pitch tracking, and you want to harmonize. Otherwise, it's very handy if you've got external signals coming in that you want to snap to notes, that they might be not precise, and you want to snap them to a particular note. The other thing it's handy for is anything generative. If you've got some form of chaosy kind of thing going in, then you might want to snap stuff. So, for example, we'll just chuck a VCA in here that we'll turn right down. We'll chuck our friend the macro oscillator in here. We'll connect these ones up to 1 and 3. And then we will, let's have just an LFO. And we might use that for trigger and for note. That's going to be, will that be interesting? No, because we need two different sources. I think. Let's use one slow one for, yeah, we'll use a slow one for note and a faster one for trigger. So we'll turn this one down. This one will be our trigger. And we'll have our note one be bipolar. I said that around the wrong way, didn't I? Yes. Okay. Triggers. This one will be notes. We'll have the other one be triggers. All right. So if we go connect this one up to the Quantizer into macro oscillator, we'll see it's got two outputs. One of it is whether the note has changed, and the other output is the quantized output, and we'll show how those work. So let's chuck in output into the volt per octave. There we go. And then we can put in the this one. We're going to need something to trigger it. We can listen to it right now without it triggering. It will be continuous. So we're going between those notes, according to this LFO. See how we're getting less notes now? It's still changing octaves, which is a bit hectic. So if we change the range down, then we'll get less. That it's not continuously playing. Because I'm using the changed output to trigger off. So I'm triggering each time the note changes. So before the pitch would be changing, it could change during, well, it was continuously playing, so there wasn't any distinct ons and offs. So you had this continuous movement. The input was continuous, just going up and down, and then the sound was constant, and it would quantize and snap. So you'd still have individual pitches because it was snapping them, but now it's got just distinct notes as well, so it'll change with gaps. So it'll play and trigger just each time there's a note to change. So obviously you can run this into an ADSR if you want instead, anything you want that change signal. So obviously, yeah, this is working from, it's very simple generative patch, just an LFO into a quantizer into the macro oscillator. And obviously that's not very interesting because the LFO is totally regular, but it doesn't have to be. Now I'm doing chaos, but we're quantizing that chaos to a pattern. So very, very simple way to do generative music. Obviously, if you set up multiple quantizers with multiple macro oscillators, or any of the other voices, you can start to get, harmonies and chords and things quite easily, and rhythms as them at the same time. So yeah, it's the building blocks of very complicated generative stuff if you want. However, if you want to do something with the quantizer that's more related to guitar playing or something like that, you can quantize things like pitch shifts. So you might be doing pitch shifts, and you want to quantize to the key that you're playing in, so the pitch shifts make coherent sense. And then you can detect the pitch of your playing and shift from there. Or even you don't need pitch detection necessarily. You might be playing something along with you that plays a bass part in the same key that you're playing. So they are all possibilities. So that's the basics of using the quantizer. So yeah, just the notes that are lit are the notes that will be active. Just touch them to get them. And yeah, there might be reasons that you want to stack quantizers if you want to do harmonies and stuff like that. So you might have one output that's getting all the notes, and then you might have one other note, one output. Oh, I can show you how to do this. Say we turn this one to C, all notes, C major. We can grab another quantizer, run the output of that one, enter the input of this one, and then we can constrain which notes we've got. Maybe just to that. And then we can run this one to a separate output. That will give you the same behavior as just running this into that and just having that. It won't if you start to limit the notes in here though. Because then you'll never get the ones that are in the later stages out. So there might be cases where they have different behavior. So that's that's using the quantizer to get these kind of generative patterns. So next after the quantizer, we'll just clean this patch up. And that, oh, that's it. U not Q. That is the end of Q, and we are on to R. Again, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask them. R. Ratio is just another one of the maths ones. They work the same as the other maths ones. It's just, divide. So it'll divide. You've got two CV inputs and you divide them. Again, this works the same as all the other ones that it's got CV inputs and constants. So if you're putting in two CVs into this, like say we have two LFOs and we connect them into the ratio, then you won't need to use these controls at all because they'll be all coming from CVs. This value is added on to the CV that's inputted. So if you've got no CV going in, then this will give you a ratio of this divided by that. So yeah, basically just there's the product one for multiplying stuff together, and then there's division. Jason asks if you download the NAM update, the neural amp modeling stuff, does it only do that, or does it still do all the other modules? Nope, it does all the modules. So it'll just be under amps down here, amp NAM. So it still does everything. You can't necessarily run everything at the same time because the neural amp captures are. The neural amp modeler captures are very CPU heavy. They will eat lots and lots and lots of CPU. So you can run them at the same time as a cab. If you're not running a cab, you could maybe run them at the same time as a couple of other effects. You can probably run them at the same time as a cab and a delay, maybe. It won't run at the same time as a cab and a reverb, I don't, for most cases. Jason, thank you, and that is quite generous. Ratio. That's how ratio works. In case you need to divide stuff, it's just another maths operation. We've got the whole set. So there's there's add, divide, plus, minus, the full set of basic maths operations. Rectify. What on earth does rectify do? It rectifies value. It's got no controls. There aren't any. It just does. Absolute value is the mathematical word for this. So if you've got something that's going plus and minus, like you've got, say, this LFO has a setting for this actually. So unipolar on or off. Unipolar means it's only going positive. It's so it's shaped like this sine wave. It's unipolar, but it's between 0 and 1. If you have the sine wave go like this, but the 0 point is in the middle and it's going between plus and minus 1, then when you rectified it, instead of looking like that with an up and downy bit, it would just be like that. So it's actually a different shape if you say unipolar here versus if you say bipolar here and then run it into the rectifier. If you connect that up to the rectifier now, you'll get a different shape. Yeah, that'll be handy because if you're running a -1 to 1 LFO or something into something like the VCA, when it's in the negative value, it'll change the phase of your signal, which may or may not be what you want. The rectifier means that the values always stay positive. That's the only thing it does. It makes it just, it multiplies, it absolute values everything. So then you just never have negative values, which, may be a thing you want. Splatter asks, there is a bet between him and his friend that the pink one loads faster than the blue one on the Beebos. Of course the pink ones go better. No, they are the exact hardware. They are identical inside. They are otherwise identical apart from the enclosure, but maybe the pink has magical powers and does make it go better. The pink is the original color that we first started making, and we don't actually have any pinks left anymore, so we're all out of pink. We haven't got any more pinks from the anodizer, so we only have blues nowadays. And a couple of the limited edition silvers. I think we've still got some silvers left. But yeah, blue is the only color we have. Storing the different, colors and stuff when I come back from the anodizer, it takes up kind of a bit of room. So trying to be a bit more efficient with that. But we might have pink again in the future. We'll see. Yeah, what was I up to? Rectify. All right. So yeah, Rectify, you might need it if you're doing something really weird and you want to make your values all positive. Usually if you're doing something in Eurorack and you want, you need to squish some CV some way. That's what it's for. The Resonestor. Don't make me say this one again. So this is not the same as I might keep those LFOs around. As the multi-resonator. It is not. It's different, but it's kind of the same kind of general gist. It's still a resonator. It's another voice. It is another synthesis voice. You can also, of course, use it as an effect, which is interesting. The controls are a little bit more vague because it's a physical modeling one again, and they kind of encourage a different way of thinking about controls. So we'll just, do I need both of those out? Actually, I might run into a stereo wet dry. I can't actually stereo. Oh, I need to make the whether the stereo word is at the beginning and the end consistent. All right. Left eye into wet L. And we'll connect them up to, oh, actually, I'll turn this right down first, for I've learned the error of my ways. All right. We might just have some chaotic triggering. So grab the chaos controller, because we know and love it. Connect its trigger, and we've got lots of options here. We'll connect this up to trigger. We'll keep these LFOs around in case we need them later. Probably trigger at that kind of one. And I like that. All right. And you'll hear we have some nice little blocks. Fun percussive little sounds coming out of the Resonestor, which has quite a nice little physical model there. And again, you'll see it's quite interesting for percussive stuff. And you'll see there's some random modulation turned on there because we've got the random mod bit turned on. I might just turn the level down a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'll just turn level down a little bit so I can talk over it a bit easier. Again, I haven't got pitch information going in there at the moment. I've just got trigger. No pitch information. So let's turn on some pitch from here. Normal way we do it, we'll just say that we want 2 octaves of pitch, which are a little bit of spread, distribution, bias to the middle, and smoothness to quantized a bit. And then we'll grab a X out from there, and we'll connect that up to pitch. Got this other pile of fun things to... This has got a lot of modulation options, which is nice. And you see we're now getting different pitches out of it. I find people don't use this voice as much, but it's got some interesting options. So most of these. This is based on a port of a mutable instruments module, so again, you can always look up the manual and the documentation for these guys through the QR codes here. There's lots of videos about mutable instrument stuff around. And you'll see how that, is changing how the physical model works of the resonator. Oh, the filters are a little bit confusing. If you're the filter, this is the same filter that's in a bunch of the other modules, and you'll notice that it's when it's in the middle, it's not really doing anything, and then it's kind of a low pass or a high pass depending on which way you go. As you go down here. So you'll be filtering, just got highs up here, and just got lows down there. So yeah, again, just another a physical model. It's not as versatile as the multi-resonator, but it's somewhat interesting as well. Oh, oops. And again, you can use it as an effect. So if we turn off our friendly trigger here, we can use this one as an effect as well, which may or not, you know. Oh, it's very windy outside. Sorry about that. Some stuff just fell over outside because it is very windy. It is a bit confusing about how to get the effect one to necessarily detect everything you want. Do we need triggers for that? All right. We can show triggers for this one as well. Is there anything else we want to show about the Resonestor? No. So yeah, basically, you'll see the general gist about how that one works. Again, a physical model. So multi-resonator is more versatile, but this one's got some extra modulation options, which can be fun too. All right, what is next on our... Oh, okay. This is there's a couple of underutilized modules that come next up in R that are some of my faves. So yeah, we're going to show those off, and then I think we'll finish off on the end of R for today. So this is, of course, one of the best modules, and it's very easy to use and quite, well, yeah, versatile if you want weird backwardsiness. All right, so we'll just, oh, we don't need this now. Let's connect that up. 1 to 3, just direct. Nothing else is connected up. Got our dry level and our wet level here. And the weird one is fragment length. So basically, it's going to grab sections of time and then reverse them. So if we just show you this as is. So I've got my dry signal, which isn't very dry. So you hear that, well, we'll get rid of all of the dry now. We've got that, delay in time, and then it comes backwards. So that reverse section is the fragment length, like how much. So, I might crank this up a little bit. So if we turn our dry down a little bit and our wet up a little bit, okay, if you turn the fragment length very high, you get really nice reverses, but it becomes much more difficult to play with because the fragment length is so long. So anything fast is a lot harder to play. Because you get these big, long, backward sections. You can, of course, I'll show you the other thing first. So if we go down to much shorter fragments lengths, we get into some pretty weird territory, which is kind of fun. So you can get that kind of weird tremolo thing kind of going if it's the right settings and backwards. start to get really short fragment length. You start to feel a bit like kind of an interesting tremolo. So if we drop out all the dry, and this is especially weird with bass because of the longer wavelengths in bass, the lower frequencies. It starts to end up quite confusing. But yeah, see, it kind of gives you this interesting and slightly confusing different tremolo kind of sound. But obviously, as you start to get to the longer ones, you start to get into more normal reverse territory. So the reverse as is, you know, obviously luscious and wonderful, but you can, of course, use the reverse. I don't need these other things, but you can use it. Let's get rid of them, so they mess up my visuals. You can, of course, use it on a delay. So we'll just disconnect the input here. We'll run a delay on it instead. No, we won't have any one on our direct. So now we'll run some clean. So we've got our dry signal here, and then because the delays only send the repeats are sent out of the delay. There's no dry there. Only the repeats will be reversed. Which, if we get a chunky-ish fragment length, and we can choose whether we want to have no. So you can get quite nice chunky reversed bits there. And if we crank some feedback up. So yeah, you can reverse like that, and it's quite fun. Obviously, that would work if you had the reverse before the delay. Would also be interesting as well. You get quite a different effect by just running the reverse before the delay and then having the delays on the reversed part, which is one of the things that's kind of so expressive, I think, for me, is that you get this option. So this will be quite a different effect if we instead swap those. Run this one into there and then run these out like that, we end up with a very different, I think I've got that full dry, yeah. We end up with a very different effect. Yeah, so I kind of love the reverse. Obviously, the same thing works on reverb. You just chuck a reverb in here instead. And I think, obviously, you know, exactly the same. If we, just grab a reverb that we love. One of these ones. Crank that guy up for maximum obviousness. And I should have grabbed the stereo one actually. So this is not reversing the reverb, but reversing the thing that's going into the reverb. So it's quite a different. So the reverb itself is still. The reverb on the sound is still the right way around. Which, yeah, obviously actually sounds quite different if we swap CDs. Obviously, yeah, you can. I'm just, always keen to show that the big thing is that the way you compose these and the things you add in this gives you very different varieties. Because often people are like, oh, do you have this particular module? And I'm like, no, but you can add these two to get that. See, that's the reverb itself is now fully reversed, which sounds quite different to the other. And if you go to a slightly more sensible fragment length, crank width level right up so it's more obvious. Well, that's kind of fun, actually. I quite enjoy that sound, actually. So yeah, if you ever need some reverse reverb, this is the way to do it. For all your weird shoegazy times. Yeah, so that's that's a sidetrack on how to use the reverse. So what's next after reverse? Oh yeah, these are the last ones. All right. Rotary and Rotary Advanced. They use exactly the same amount of CPU, an incredibly large amount. Rotary's just got less knobs. Really always use the Rotary Advanced. It has more knobs. And more controls is more fun. But they're the exact same algorithm. And they use this physical modeling approach, which is pretty fancy. So, again, very CPU heavy though. But let's run into this. Left output, right output. Do we want to have... Oh, okay, so if you want to make the effect of the rotary more obvious, a wet dry at the end is quite handy. So we might chuck a stereo wet dry in here as well. Yeah, I will do that. And we'll disconnect these ones. And then this into left to wet left. Right to dry wet. And then I'll run some dry. Dry RNL. All right. And then we'll run that left. All right. All right. So now we've got our fancy rotary with going into the wet dry. So we can choose to be fully wet or whatever level we would like of wetness. Didn't realize I had my volume all turned down. So, running into the rotary now. So, it has a multitude of options. Just a ton of controls. So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in case I miss anything. Please, please ask all the questions that are required. So, this is the main control that changes between the fast, rotary speed. Actually, we don't want any dry at the moment, do we? Okay, sorry. I just realised why I'm an idiot. I had routed into 2, not at the when I was actually plugged into, and that's why I was very confused. Cool. Well, that's actually a little bit high. Hopefully that is a comfortable level for everybody. That might be a little tiny bit hot. Just turn that down a little bit. So yeah, you'll notice it's really quite a wonderful sounding rotary, and the way it does that is that it's actually a full physical model of how the horn and the drum are rotating. So they will change correctly if you... So they've got certain amounts of acceleration and things like that. All of that is fully configurable. So let's run through these. Split. So we've got a couple of corns. This is one of the older user interfaces, so it's a little bit more confusing. But so there's controls for the horn and there's controls for the drum. You grab between these to get to them. Then if you press this squiggly line over here, you get to the advanced controls for everything. These are things like when you hit the brake, where in the rotary, the Leslie does it stop, for the horn and the drum. How are they off axis from each other? What is the angle of the microphone that's picking this up? How far is the microphone from the cabinet? Because obviously, rotate my thingy. Obviously, if they're closer, they'll have a very different sound. And if they're far away. And then there's the weirder controls, the actual radius of the drum and the horn. So that actually changes the physical size of the cabinet and the whole mechanism. By default, they're set to the same as famous rotaries, but you can of course change them to be bigger or smaller if you want different characteristics. So there are a ton of controls here for you to tune to your preference. So that's the slow setting. Obviously, it's rather nice to be able to control these by foot switches, which this module has CV inputs, so you can bind these to inputs. Of course, you can bind them to what's called MIDI as well. You can bind all the controls to MIDI. If you want to combine it to a foot switch, grab a foot switch, set that to, probably latching. We'll grab that and we'll put the value into, that's not the thing I want to connect to the rotary. Value out. And so we want to have we can either have brakes for both of them, or we can control the speed for the horn or the drum. So let's control both of them. Speed. And now see we go to the slow speed, and then we go to the high speed. All right. So we went through the advanced features. Now we've got these ones: split, character, rotor, and how they are mixed. So mix, as you can see, has the level, how wide in a stereo thing, and how much of the horn signal leaks into the drum. There are a lot of controls for the advanced rotary. So the rotor part of it is actually how it's spinning around. So it's how fast it is. So so it's speed when it's set to slow, or the speed when it's set to fast, and how it accelerates. So we're on the slow speed or the high speed. I might show it on here because it's more obvious. So obviously foot switch, but I will drop that off for the moment. I'll disconnect that one for the moment from both those, and we'll show it on this control. So slow, fast. Now, if we are on the rotor settings, that changes how the speed of those two speeds. So now we're on the slow speed, but we can make the slow speed less slow. And this horn acceleration and deceleration, that'll control how quickly we change between those two speeds. So if we turn this down pretty low, horn acceleration, and we have the fast speed up pretty high, and the slow speed down pretty low, it takes a while to get up to that. Deceleration is a lot faster there, obviously, because we've got it set faster. So yeah, you can have that transition, control how it transitions between the speeds, and that is actually a constraint on the acceleration of the horn, because remember, this is a full physical model. So yeah, we've got the resonance of this particular filter that's splitting these. Gain on this stage, oops, that gets pretty crunchy. And where this filter splits. Well, where this filter is filtered. This one, we've got a split here, which is where the signal is split up into the horn and the drum. Again, we've got the same rotor controls for the drum, same mix controls over here. They're a bit hard to get to in this new interface. So same controls for the mix there. And yeah, split. Again, that's the how the sound is split into the drum and horn. So you'll see that the Rotary Advanced is actually incredibly feature rich. If you want a very specific rotary sound, really you can get absolutely everything you want from I think from the Rotary Advanced. Okay, I have a question as well from Matt, who asks, will the launch of the new software be with the new... I don't know what you mean. Do you mean the capture software for it? The website stuff? Will that be launched when we launch the new firmware for the pedal? If so, yes. Yep. So we're planning to get the new capture stuff, the capture website out very soon, / this week, next day or two, hopefully. I finished most of it on the weekend, but I still need to double check and test a few things. Web stuff for capturing audio and doing things like that is a bit of a nightmare because it depends very much on browsers and operating systems and a bunch of other fiddles. So yeah, need to test that a bit. And then obviously it'll be in beta for a little bit just so a variety of people with a variety of systems can test it out. But then yeah, the actual new firmware for NAMM will launch the next step of that will launch at the same time. I think there's probably going to be another pretty short round of beta just because there's probably going to be some other bugs that are found when people can load their own files on. At the moment, the NAMM stuff is pretty easy and nice and locked down.